Hi, today I will be discussing how to incorporate visual arts in the classroom. This is strategy number 11 from Integrating Language Arts and Social Studies by Leah M. Melber and Alice Hunter. The first question I would like to ask is how can educators use visual arts to create engaging social studies lessons? I will give you a minute to think. So educators can use visual arts such as photography, sculpture, painting, and many more to help engage students in past and present events. Next, we'll be learning about ILAS strategy number 11, which is connecting with the visual arts. You're probably wondering how we can use visual arts in the classroom. From the textbook on page 78, quote, teachers can simply use art to introduce a lesson and have students brainstorm about what they see and how it might relate to what they are going to study, end quote. An example taken from the textbook on the same page is, quote, displaying a copy of Sheeler's American Scene, which depicts a train and factory, could be used to introduce the youngest learners to a unit on transportation and the importance of railroad for shipping goods, end quote. As we know, ILAS strategy number 11 ties into the social studies, but how does it tie into the language arts? On page 79, there are standards for the English language arts. Standard number 12 addresses the language arts component. It is, quote, students use spoken, written, and visual language to accomplish their own purposes. For example, learning, enjoyment, persuasion, and the exchange of information, end quote. Quite often, writing is incorporated into the visual arts, as students reflect on what the piece of art means to them. Teachers can also provide books to help students' creativity and build on their existing schema. Next, we need to talk about the benefits of art in the classroom. So how does art help our students? Teachers can use art to illuminate and to provide multiple perspectives about people or past events. It is important for students to learn about multiple perspectives, as this helps them understand what it might have been like for historical figures and the impact of historical events. Next is what skills can the visual arts improve? They can improve motivation, confidence, concentration, and teamwork in the classroom and amongst students. Below these questions, we have a quote. Visual arts can connect people more deeply to the world and open them to new ways of seeing. This directly relates back to perspectives. The NCSS themes that will be addressed are 1. Culture, specifically geography and history, 2. Time, continuity, and change, and 3. People, places, and environment. Now we are going to dive into a short inquiry lesson on national and state parks. Note that this is just an outline and can be adjusted for any grade level. I would like you to think of a time you visited a national or state park. I want you to keep this in your head and not forget about it as we will come back to it. I will give you a minute to think. Next, we need to know what the visual arts are, so I'm going to show a short video.
Art. When we hear that word, some of our minds jump to museums or framed paintings, and in that context, some people think, I'm not a big fan of art, I just don't get it. Or they think of art as something that's just for intellectuals or artsy people. But really, art is for anyone who wants to experience it, and it's often in more places than we might realize. Songs you like, movies you watch, poems, theater, even a quilt that your grandmother made. All of that and more is art. So you might be wondering, well, then what is art? How do I define it? Well, that's tough. Art's been around for thousands of years, and through the ages it's evolved in a number of different ways. And the reasons for creating it vary from person to person depending on any number of factors. So defining art is pretty tricky, and it's something that's been debated throughout history. There just isn't one agreed upon definition. However, many believe that art is anything that stirs emotion in you. Now, the emotions that get stirred up depend entirely on your own history, your story, everything that comes together to make up who you are. And because of this, three different people can experience the same piece of art and have wildly different reactions to it. One person might think it's the most beautiful thing they've ever seen, the second person might hate it, and the third might not feel much of anything at all. And none of them would be wrong. Everyone's entitled to their own preferences and feelings when it comes to art. You know, the way you feel about your favorite song could be the same way that someone else feels about their favorite sculpture. And even though you might not like that sculpture, it can be valuable to consider why that person enjoys it so much. You may learn something about them and maybe even yourself. The term art is really just a label. Over the years, a lot of people have tried to classify what it is or what it isn't, but that's not really what art is about. It's about your personal experience with it and the meaning that you draw from it. Everyone reacts to art differently and has the potential to grow and learn from it. It gives us the opportunity to tell stories, record history, and tap into our emotions in a way that few other things can. Art.
Now that you know what the visual arts are, here are some more examples. On the left, we have a sculpture from the Corning Glass Museum in New York. At the top, we have a black and white photograph. Right below it, we have some abstract art, possibly done with watercolor or colored pencils. And lastly, we have a piece by a famous artist known as Vincent van Gogh. Now, I want you to think about how you can incorporate visual art that is meaningful to you into the history of the park that you chose. I am now going to dive into an example of an inquiry lesson for a state park in Montana that I chose. The state park is Makoshika State Park, and in Lakota, Makoshika means bad land. My essential question for this inquiry is, how do national and state parks enrich people's lives? We will start with a brief history. This will include location, establishment, uniqueness, some helpful resources for teachers, a what else, and a circle back. Before I start learning about the state park, I need to know where it is located. So my question is, where is Makoshika? It can be seen right on this circle on the Montana and North Dakota border in Glendive, Montana. It is Montana's largest state park at 11,531 acres. Next is establishment. The question is, when was it established as a state park? In 1939, Catherine McCarty first proposed Makoshika as a park, but it wasn't established until 1953. On this slide, I also have an essential question. Why do we establish state and national parks? I believe we establish state and national parks for enjoyment, recreation, and education, but we also establish them to protect their historical significance, culture, and beauty. Now I will be talking about the uniqueness of Makoshika. My question is, what is unique about this state park? What makes it so fascinating? 3 things that I found were the land formations, which an image can be seen to the right that I took, and the amount of fossil remains found in the park, which I will discuss in a minute. And the Hell Creek Formation. For those of you that don't know, the Hell Creek Formation is composed of Upper Cretaceous and Lower Paleocene rocks. It has exposed many dinosaur fossils near Hell Creek in Jordan, Montana. Next is the question of what else? What else do I want to know about Makoshika? And my question is, how has Makoshika changed over the years? There can be many answers to this question, but I believe from my research, it is from erosion, due to the natural weather in Montana, and also people. People can change state parks, but usually it takes some time. They camp or they don't follow park rules such as staying on the trail. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the people. My question is, how do others view Makoshika State Park? In other words, what is Makoshika known for? It is known for its fossil remains of over 10 species of dinosaurs. A fun fact, quote, in 1889, a research associate of Professor Marsh rode a horse through the Makoshika Badlands and recorded 500 Triceratops skulls, end quote. How cool! Makoshika is also known for its land formations, as they are unique and all different. On the next slide, you'll see examples of art that can be used to depict the history of Makoshika State Park. We will be taking a quick look at this website. This is the artist named Dale Beckham, and he does abstract paintings of Makoshika State Park. These paintings can help your students get some creativity flowing of what they would like to do for their visual art project. Photography is also a great art example, as students can use art to create their own project. Posters are another great one, as they can convey information. Next are some national and state park books. Books are great for creativity and can help students get their creative juices flowing on what they would like to do to use visual arts in historical context. So the first one is National Parks of the USA, written by Kate Cyber. The next one is specifically Montana, the Story of Our State, written by Alan Jones. And the last one, which is my favorite, The Art of the National Parks, by 59 Parks. Circling back, I'm going to answer the essential question that was posed in the beginning. How can national and state parks enrich people's lives? So according to the Library of Congress, the article Brief History of National Parks, quote, the national parks of today are public resources for recreation, education, scholarship, and the preservation of endangered landscapes, natural communities, and species. So from my conclusion, with the establishment of national and state parks, they can enrich people's lives by providing historical and cultural perspectives of the past. Before I end, I want to briefly mention the importance of field trips if the school you're teaching at allows them. Some benefits from field trips are students get to experience hands-on activities and learning as they develop their critical thinking skills in a different environment. They are engaged through guided tours of the landscape or the park. Lastly, this presentation can be adapted for any grade level and is a great way to incorporate visual arts into the classroom.